It's Mr. Brown. We're in the second part of our OSI model podcast. We're at layer 5, the session layer. Out of the whole OSI model, this seems to be the one that's probably toughest to get your head wrapped around. Most of the other layers, we have something tangible we can either look at, touch, or see. This is a little tougher. This is the one that's actually controlling our communication session. Again, OSI model is describing network communications. So as I go to send a file or receive a file, this model is describing what is happening to get that done. Well, as I'm sending a file, it's not instantaneous. I actually send some chunks of data and then I wait for some responses. So this layer is responsible for maintaining this session and watching information come and go and keeping track of things, and if necessary, stepping in and restarting if something goes wrong. So it's managing terminated connection between you and the server, for example. So this is the one that kind of the manager watching this whole thing happen. Well, it's still kind of tough to get your head wrapped around, so I'm going to give you at least one example that shows you this going on. There's something called local echo off. When you type on your keyboard, as you hit a key that's going into the processor, it's reading that, it's sending information to your video card and displaying it on your screen, if you will. Well, that whole process, takes a fraction of a second, but that is local echo off, or local echo. When I type a key, it actually shows that, it echoes that, and shows it on the screen. Well, there are times I don't actually want that, and I want my local echo turned off. Example, when you type in your name and password for like your email account, it'll show the name, DL Brown, typed in the name line. When you click in the password box, it starts displaying blanks, dots, asterisks, asterisks, whatever, I'm just teasing. It'll display a character there instead of your actual password. That's local echo off. So here's a tiny example of, as you're doing your communication session, sending data back and forth, I sent my name, now it's asking for my password, I send my password. Well, in that communication session it says, I bet you don't want to display your password, I'm going to turn that echo off. And then as I continue on later on, I'll turn it back on so you can, as you're typing your email, see your email type on the screen. So there's a little teeny sliver of proof that this session layer is functioning and working for you. Layer 4, transport layer. This is a big one. This is the one that gives our communication session the reliability that we need. I'm going to jump right down to next slide here. This is the one that's responsible for reliable data transfer across our network. Alright, so let's think about it. When you've used a web browser and download a web page, what's really going on is I'm asking the web server, hey, give me this web page. And what the web server is actually sending you is a series of files. It'll send you one file that happens to be the logo in the corner. Send you another file that happens to be a text block on the left. Send you another file which is the little, contact us button on the bottom. Another file, and on and on and on. It's a whole series of files being sent to your computer and displayed on your computer. So all these pieces are really asked for individually. Give me your web page. Give me this, give me this, give me this, give me this. And all the pieces are loaded onto your screen. And if a file goes missing, I often see a red X on my screen where that file should go, that picture, that graphic, that button, whatever it is. I'll see a red X on my screen. Well, I like to ask this question, how many times do you see that red X? Not many, because things like TCP, Transmission Control Protocol, is doing their job and getting that piece of information and putting it on the screen for you. So you don't often see that missing file. Things like TCP are trying to fill everything in and get it on the screen for you. So there's one little example of TCP doing that. This is reliability. Well, the book talks about something called a three-way handshake and reliable communication. Well, let me take a second. We're going to take a little detour, and I'm going to describe some of that with you. All right. I'm going to pull up something called Wireshark. Let me get my Wireshark up here. This is a packet capture tool. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a mini packet capture of me loading a web page. And we're going to look at some of the data on here. So I'm going to start my packet capture. I'll do capture, and I'll start that. Okay, I'm grabbing packets off the network. I'm going to go to my browser. I'm going to load a web page I haven't been to today before. So I will go to here. I'll load that web page. my packet capture tool is capturing all these packets loading onto my screen. I'm going to go back to my packet capture tool and I'm going to capture, I'm going to stop that. And already I have like 4,000 packets. I'm going to quick scroll to the top and I'm going to put a filter in here that says, hey, I only want to see the packets involved with my computer, not somebody else's. Well, my computer happens to be 172.21.120.121, so I'm going to put in here a filter 172.21.120.121, so I'm only seeing packets that apply to my computer. I'm then going to scroll down and look for some DNS information where I contacted and said, hey, does anybody know the address of this particular website that I'm trying to go to? And here it is right here. Here's my query, www.alms.com. American Le Mans, it's one of my favorite websites. And here's the response coming back from the DNS server saying the address you're looking for, here's the answer down here, the address you're looking for is 74.206.125. Alright, so my machine is now going to talk to the 74.206 web server. So I'm going to go down to the next line down here, and sure enough, there's my IP talking to the web server right here. I'm going to do something sneaky. I'm going to go to the top, and I'm going to go to Analyze and say, I want to follow this TCP stream. So I'm going to follow that. And I look at the first couple packets up here, and it's me talking to the web server talking to me talking to the web server. And if I look a little carefully on the right, I'll see the first packet is my synchronization packet. The next packet is the synchronization acknowledgement, and the third one's the acknowledgement. There is my TCP three-way handshake. Well, okay, big fancy example here, but what Mr. Brown's getting at is when I want to get a web page, I need to get it reliably so I get all the pieces of my web page. So to do that, one of my protocols, TCP, Transmission Control Protocol, steps in and sets up a connection-oriented session. Remember the book talked about connection-oriented, connectionless? Connection-oriented session. So my TCP does this three-way handshake before it transfers any data. And all that is to say, hey, Mr. Web Server, I want to get a web page. Can we set up a communication session? And the web server responds back with sure. And the two of us kind of synchronize, we get ourselves organized on how we're going to do this data transfer. And then from here on out, we transfer data. The web server will send a certain chunk of data to me. I'll wait for it, I'll get it all, and I'll respond saying, I got it all, send some more. So we're now keeping track of everything being sent and received. This is connection-oriented, and here is an example of TCP doing that with a three-way handshake to set up the communication session. So let me go back to our PowerPoint here. Boop, there we are. Transport layer, reliable data transfer. If I need a reliable data transfer, things like TCP are going to step in and do that. That is giving me reliability. Doing that with a three-way handshake to set up my communication session and keeping track of everything sent and acknowledging everything that's sent. Okay? All right, so let's talk about a couple of these terms. We have flow control, segmentation, desegmentation, those sorts of things that we want to talk about. All right, so with transport layer, we have some things that need to occur so we can have a reliable data transfer. One is something called flow control. If the web server, I'm going to go back to my packets over here, if the web server tries to send me too much information for me to process, I can't process it all, I'm going to lose it. It's kind of like somebody pouring too much water in my bucket. Okay, when the bucket gets full, all the water spills out. Okay, so if the web server sends me too much information, I don't know what to do with it, I throw it out. So we need to communicate back and forth of, hey, I only can accept so much. So let me pull one of these packets open. And if I look at the TCP header here, I'm going to open this up. In here, I'm going to see something called window size. Right here, window size 64. So this, at this point in time, one of us is saying, hey, I can only handle 64 bytes at a time. Well, if I look a little closer, this is going from web server to me. So the web server is saying, hey, my window size is 64. I'm pretty busy, man. I can't send much. I can't receive much. So that's a way to make sure we don't overwhelm each other. That's flow control, or in our case, window size, to make sure we're not overwhelming. Segmentation, desegmentation. Well, when we go to send data, instead of sending the entire web page Think about turning a 100-page research paper into your teacher. Give all 100 pages to them. If they lose it, you have to turn around and give all 100 pages again. Well, when a website is set, they don't send us all files in one shot. They send the files individually in little pieces. The idea being it's easier to process them, and if something gets lost, I can ask for just a little piece. Hey, can I have that one page instead of the whole document again? So segmentation is going to break it into pieces and send it to me, little chunks at a time. Well, if I look back over here, look at all these. I'm just going to start scrolling. Look at all these chunks of data sent to me just to get that one web page. Hundreds of them. Hundreds of them. Okay? The idea here being if I break it in little pieces, it's easier to send. It doesn't overwhelm the network. And if I lose a couple, I can respond saying, hey, can you send these couple pieces to me? I didn't get them. And hopefully it'll resend them to me so I'm in good shape. So that's your segmentation, desegmentation. It makes it easier to send it through the network. And I use the example of shipping a whole car through the mail and all that good stuff. Kind of crazy, but you get the idea. Some of our protocols at the transport layer are connection-oriented. Absolutely, here it is. TCP is connection-oriented. I showed you the TCP handshake that we use to send my web page reliably. On the other hand, some protocols at the transport layer are connectionless. They don't have the reliability, but they send my data much quicker. Okay, one example is UDP. I'm going to go back to my same packet capture. I'm going to clear all my filters. And I'm going to go back to just putting in my IP filter I had done before. 172, 21, 120, 121. And this is just showing only the packets applying to me. I'm going to go back to the top and I'm going to look for my DNS packet I sent saying, hey, Mr. Web Server, do you know the address of? Okay. I'm going to open this packet up, this DNS packet. And what I find in here is my DNS is using the UDP protocol. Here it is, UDP. Look how small that header is. There's not much information there. That means this protocol is, kind of stripped down, streamlined. It's designed to send information quickly. And if you don't get it, oh well, we'll send it again. Okay, it's almost kind of like a postcard where you send it through the mail saying, hey, I'm having fun in the sun on the beach. Okay, and if they don't get it, not a big deal. That's your UDP. Some of our protocols, some of our data transfers use UDP for quick, fast sending of data. Things like here, my DNS. Not much information, but send it quickly. Or something like a voice or video packet. Send it quickly. If I lose a couple chunks of my voice conversation, so my voice gets a little choppy, but I still get it there and I'm not holding it up. Meanwhile, if I want to send a web page, I want all the web page there. So if I look at one of my HTTP packets and open it up, what I find is it's using TCP. And look how big this header is. All that stuff in there now. A lot more bloated, but it's there to get the job done. Reliably transfer the data. Okay, so I'm going to close that. We'll go back to our PowerPoint here. So some of our protocols layer 4 are connection-oriented like TCP. Some are connectionless like UDP. Connection-oriented TCP is used for reliable data transfer, things like email, things like web pages, that sort of stuff. Meanwhile, UDP, connectionless, is used for things like voice, video. Just get it there quickly, or DNS as we looked at. All right, so there's our transport layer. Again, good time to take a break. When I come back, we'll look at layer 3 and down.